What if the most important teaching tool in your studio isn't a method book, but how you communicate? In this excerpt from the Inclusive Teaching course, Scott Price explores how breathing, voice, and body language can transform the learning experience for students with special needs.
Now, these videos are probably going to be very silly, but that's the point. We want to kind of overdo these communication devices so that you can see how they work and really see them in action. So the first thing under breathing that we talked about was inhalation. Now I'm going to inhale several ways, and it's going to tell you many things about what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, and how I'm reacting to a situation. So here we go. Okay, so I use some facial expressions there as well, but depending on our emotional state, we're going to inhale differently. Usually it indicates some kind of surprise or shock, or that we've seen something funny, or just something that caught our attention. Now, the next topic was exhalation, and I'm going to exhale several different ways and see what you can define about my emotional state or my thinking or how I'm observing something. Okay, I think you probably can all identify with those. We exhale that way a lot during the day, depending on the situation. So our next topic was holding the breath. If I'm doing something and I hold my breath, I could be concentrating very intensely, or I could want to get attention and I stop breathing, or any number of things. It's a communication device we don't use very often, and that we may see children use more often than adults do. But it's something that can be very effective when we're communicating with a student. Perhaps a student is doing something, and I look at them and I go, I am smiling and holding my breath to indicate perhaps some level of displeasure without looking mean or frowning or putting that student in a negative state of mind or a negative emotional state, which is very important for our students who are special learners. Sometimes they don't fully understand our communication devices, and we want to make sure that things aren't misinterpreted as we continue in the teaching. Under voice, the first thing that I talked about was range. Obviously, I'm a baritone. There's really nothing that I can do about that, but I can talk in the higher part of my range, or I can talk in the midpoint, or much lower in the range. And we use range and different parts of our range in expressing different emotions or different thoughts. So just be aware of that as you're using your range and exploring your range, and how you can use that to draw attention to concepts when you're working with your students. The next, I think, doesn't need any explanation. This is volume. And obviously we can talk very loudly or very quietly or something in between. But often I'll use volume when speaking with my students to highlight certain words or certain concepts in the teaching, so that it draws their attention and keeps them focused. And sometimes I'll do the opposite of what you would expect. If I have a very important concept, I might say it very quietly to draw attention to it, or very loudly. It just depends upon the situation and upon the student and how they react to the things I'm doing with my voice. Next, we talked about timbre. And timbre is the color of your voice. Now, some of those things we can't change because each of us has a unique voice print and a unique sound to our voice, but we can change it somewhat and make things a little bit more raspy, or things a little bit more nasally, or things a little bit more breathy, depending on how we want to draw attention to what we are saying or communicate things. Often we'll use those colors very humorously, but they can be used very effectively during the lesson to help draw students' attention and to highlight words and meanings. The next is pitch. Pitch is obviously how high or how low we are speaking within the range, and none of us speaks in a monotone manner of voice. So what we do is whenever we're talking to our students, or to anyone else for that matter, we tend to have lots of high and low and medium sounds within what we're saying to indicate importance to words or concepts. Now, this can be a lot of fun in teaching. And we may need to do that, or we may need to do the opposite as well. Some of our students have problems decoding all of the information that's being contained in the sound of our voice. So sometimes for an autistic student, or a student who has autism, I need to make sure to use person-first language there. I will often flatten the tone of my voice and speak somewhat like this with a little bit less expression, but not completely monotone, because that removes all of this other emotional and cognitive information from my voice that they have to decode before they can get to the vocabulary. With other students, you may need to use a lower tone of voice and a lower range and a lower pitch, or you may need to use a higher one to get their attention. Often I take those cues from the students themselves and how they speak or how their family speaks as a unit. I want things to stay the same in the lesson, and often sort of mimicking or reading the student's voice usage can help me create a teaching persona that will make the student feel more comfortable and be more receptive to learning. So the first element of body language that we discussed was just the position of the head. You know, if the head is back, it can mean lethargy, boredom, or even thought. If you close your eyes and put your head back, it means that you're contemplating something very deeply. Our head can always be in regular position, and it can also be down, which can indicate, again, contemplation or submission or lethargy. And we can also put our head to the side, which usually means confusion, or it can also mean thought, depending on your facial expression, or we can be trying to indicate direction or trying to look to see where something is. So next, if we have our head, we have to have a neck to hold it up. So our neck can actually be very expressive. It places the head, but neck forward can mean that you are scrutinizing something or that you're having trouble hearing. Neck to the side can turn the head there, and that can mean also some state of trying to understand something. It can also mean disbelief, or that you're not taking someone seriously. And our head position we use constantly just to even communicate direction. Instead of saying, take a right, it's just over there. So we use our head in many ways that we don't think about. Shoulders. So our shoulders generally are relaxed, which indicate openness and readiness for communication. If our shoulders are back, we might be getting ready to initiate some kind of huge, important movement. We may be starting to express some kind of frustration or anger, or just pride. Sometimes being proud of oneself, you throw your shoulders back. Now, hunched shoulders can indicate discomfort or tension in a student, and a shrug with your shoulders can just mean, I don't know. Or have you ever had somebody just look at you when you accuse them of something, and instead of admitting it, they just say, with one shoulder? And it's just a kind of a flip way of getting out of something without having to get into a fight over it. Also, shoulders forward can often just mean we're tired, or that a student is tired. If we have shoulders, they're going to help us with our arms, and our arms are one of the biggest forms of indicating either openness or closedness in our communication. If we're open, we're always sharing information or taking things in or inviting people into our space or giving things from our space to them. If our arms are closed, it can mean we're angry, we're obstinate, that we are experiencing discomfort, or that we just don't want to communicate. It can also mean, depending upon the rest of our body position, that we are indicating that we are listening intently That usually depends on whether a person knows us very well or not.
What you've seen here is just one portion of the communication module from the Inclusive Teaching course by the Francis Clark Center. In the full course, you'll explore additional elements like facial expression and vocabulary, along with reflective exercises and practical strategies you can apply directly in your studio. If you're committed to reaching every student more effectively, especially students with diverse learning needs, we invite you to explore the full course at pianoinspires.com/courses. Thank you for watching and for the meaningful work you do as a teacher.